Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, M and J, and today we wanted to take a look at Teen Titans Roar, a crossover episode between Teen Titans Go and Thundercats Roar. I'm not surprised this happened because they've crossed over with multiple other shows in the past, but this one came pretty quickly. Thundercats Roar just premiered, and this episode was written when the first trailer for Thundercats Roar dropped in 2018. Apparently they saw the negative reaction people had and decided to write an episode then and there, so this can only end well. Thundercats Roar premiered in February on the Cartoon Network app. We gave it a chance and it wasn't very good. It was pretty obnoxious and lacked comedic skills, which is pretty important for a comedy show. You can see our full review here, but after that we were pretty much done with the show and haven't seen any more after the pilot. And we had the same experience with Teen Titans Go. Back in 2012, Cartoon Network had a block called DC Nation, and in between the shows they would play shorts and some of them involved Teen Titans. These were really fun and charming, and we just assumed that Teen Titans Go was going to be a longer format version of that, but that didn't end up being the case. Teen Titans was really popular when it was on, and a lot of people were hoping to get a 6th season, but Cartoon Network started to aim more towards comedy shows instead of action shows. So I guess the logic was taking one of their more popular shows and pairing it with comedy, which I don't necessarily think was a bad idea. We saw that with the DC Nation shorts, and those were really cute. But Teen Titans Go doesn't have anything to do with those shorts, and it's basically just doing its own thing. Sometimes it's alright, but most of the time it's just obnoxious, and has some questionable content, like having episodes focusing on characters' body parts like Raven's legs or Robin's butt, or even having the characters fart in each other's faces. This is pretty clearly fetish fuel. There are kids shows that have adult jokes that slip past the radar, just for a little something for the parents who are watching, but they keep insisting this show is meant for small children, so it's strange that they would make episodes focusing on this kind of stuff. On top of all that, Cartoon Network flooded the schedule with this show, which just makes it even more frustrating. Plus they're really bad at handling criticism. Including this episode, they have made 6 episodes addressing the criticism, labeling everybody as haters and immature losers, which makes them look very insecure and petty. And this episode isn't helping. Now they're talking about the criticism of a completely different show after not handling their own criticism well. That original trailer for Thundercats Roar caused a big firestorm online, and now Teen Titans Go threw gas on the fire. Thundercats Roar didn't actually have anything to do with the writing of this episode. That was all Teen Titans Go, but Thundercats is probably the one that's going to take the fall for this, because this episode basically goes out of its way to burn a lot of bridges. This episode starts out with Starfire reading by herself, but she's interrupted by the other Titans, who jump out and recreate the original Thundercats theme song. This takes up about a minute of the 10-minute episode. It is a great theme song, and this is probably the best part of this episode, but do we need a low-budget recreation of it? We could just watch the original, but they established that the Titans are big fans of the original and they're very excited it's getting a reboot. Starfire says she's never seen the original, but she's very excited for the reboot too, so she can see what all the fuss is about. There's actually an earlier episode of this series where all the Titans dressed up as Thundercats for Halloween, which included Starfire dressing as Cheetara. I don't expect this show to follow continuity, I just think it's ironic. But a big problem with this episode is how predictable it is. We already know exactly how this episode's going to go from the very first minute. The Titans represent the original fans, so when they see the show they're gonna hate it. But Starfire's going to love the show because she's never seen the original. And the writers are under the impression that only fans of the original wouldn't like this show. But all the characters are excited to sit down and watch the premiere of Thundercats Roar, only for the 4 Titans to be immediately disgusted. I can't blame them since the first second of the theme song is really cringe. Yeah! But predictably, Starfire finds it charming, probably because she doesn't know any better. The others think this has to be a mistake and are horrified to see it's real. Their biggest complaint about the designs is that they have bean-shaped mouths, and decide they must have been designed by vegans, which is something they repeat several times throughout this episode. I guess they really thought it was funny. But isn't Beast Boy a vegan? Or at least vegetarian? Pretty sure his voice actor is also a vegan. It's weird seeing him complaining about this. I'm honestly more concerned they don't look anything like cats. In fact, with those weird shine lines, they look like they're made out of rubber. They sure stretch like rubber. The Titans are outraged and storm off, except for Starfire, who keeps watching, because it's not for the fans. The next morning, they're still upset about it, so Starfire asks what they have against the show. Robin claims it's because it wasn't made exactly the way they wanted it to be, which is just accusing fans of being entitled instead of acknowledging the show has major flaws, like the problems with the animation, storytelling, storytelling and comedy. Starfire says it isn't fair for them to not like the show if they haven't seen it, which is kind of a strange argument considering the fact that when the script for this episode was written, Thundercats Roar had only been announced, so they haven't seen the show either, but they're just assuming that it's good, and that all the criticism is misguided even though that trailer just wasn't very good. They probably feel like since it's on their network they have to go to bat for it, but they aren't exactly helping much. But Starfire suggests they give it a try and the others reluctantly agree, which makes Star happy since she's optimistic they'll enjoy it once they actually watch it. But again, they can't get past the first second. In fact, they get so upset this time that they destroy their TV. Starfire insists that they're being unfair, but the others insist that they don't need to watch it to know what's wrong with it. So Starfire asks them to be specific. Cyborg says everything is wrong with it, and to be honest, I don't entirely disagree with him. The animation's pretty choppy, sometimes it's fluid, but most of the time the characters are wildly going off model practically frame by frame, along with just plain being ugly to look at. The pacing for the storytelling is too fast, while the comedy pacing is too slow. They hurry through exposition while jokes drag on way too long, and become repetitive and worn out. Not to mention they ignore things like setup and punchline or the rule of threes, and instead of trying to build bridges between the old fans and this new show, they just wrote us off. So yeah, after watching the pilot, I don't have a lot of positives to say about the show, and Starfire never actually makes arguments in favor of Thundercats Roar. She just says that she finds it delightful, but why does she find it delightful? Does she like the characters or the comedy? She keeps demanding they explain why they don't like it, but she never explains why she likes it. So why is her opinion valid but theirs aren't? I get they're having an extreme reaction, but they're doing that on purpose to make fun of the fans. But in universe, she isn't doing anything to convince them. She just keeps insisting that if they watch it, they'll like it eventually. Anyway, Star says that she doesn't understand how they can get so worked up over a children's show. So Raven says that just because it's a children's show doesn't mean it has to suck, and that kids are smarter than people give them credit for, which is actually a valid point. But instead of arguing that point, they just have a cutaway gag of a baby reading a book called Advanced Pooping. Is that supposed to discredit Raven's argument? Because it doesn't. If they're trying to validate Thundercats Roar, they're not doing a good job of it. They don't try to explain why the show is good, and then when they bring up a fair point, they don't try to counter it. But the Titans decide they have to get Thundercats Roar off the air, and as they leave to make plans, Beast Boy runs and gets the baby from the cutaway gag. Wait, why is this random baby in Titan's tower? Where are the parents? What are they doing with a baby? Robin decides to make a petition to get Thundercats Roar cancelled, with the goal of 500 signatures. The others are excited about this except for Starfire, who isn't sure 500 signatures is enough, but they laugh her off. They sign it and write messages about how the new Thundercats is poop, and that their vegan animators don't know how to make cartoons. Robin asks Starfire to sign it, but she refuses because she likes the show, so Beast Boy accuses her of being a vegan. Is he not a vegan in this show? Or do the writers just not care? Robin announces they only need 496 more angry nerd signatures before they can get the show cancelled, so they run off and are mostly ignored. But Robin sees a man on a laptop close by. I guess he's supposed to be one of those angry stereotypical nerds that they were talking about earlier, but he is outside, so good for him. It'd be nice to go outside again. I've completely lost track of the days. But he signs and the Titans celebrate, so they head off to find more. They find a man who is literally in a dumpster, and another man who is on all fours barking like a dog, wearing a diaper, and being led on a leash by who I assume is his mother. Is this another fetish thing? If your audience is literally babies, maybe don't write your fetishes into these episodes. It's really creepy. But this is what they think of their detractors, and fans of the original. They're all male. If Raven weren't a part of the team, there wouldn't be any women who were seen as fans of the original. If they had included women, I'm sure it would have been just as stereotypical, but at least they understand the rule of threes. That's more than can be said for Thundercats Roar. So the Titans celebrate that they got all the signatures they wanted, and then send it off to Warner Brothers Studios, and they use Cyborg's cannon to do that, which destroys their window. Anyway, Warner Brothers gets it, and they send their response immediately. Also, they have advertisements for Teen Titans Go on the walls of the studio. Wouldn't it have made more sense for the Titans to go to the studio and express their concerns instead of sending this petition? Since the Titans apparently work for the studio in this universe, so couldn't they just go to them directly? Back in the 90s, characters could go straight to Steven Spielberg. Anyway, the letter they get just thanks them for their interest in the show and has a picture of Bugs Bugs Bunny attached to it. Yeah, Freakazoid did the studio execs being flippant joke way better.
We were just wondering, who's your favorite?
Who are you people?
I miss that show. But they're all extremely disappointed, and Beast Boy says they're just going to have to live with Thundercats Roar now. But Starfire's just happy they all came to their senses. However, Robin still insists they're not going to give up. And Cyborg adds they have nothing better to do. Well, if we're being honest, we don't have anything better to do with this quarantine going on. But Raven has an idea to stop Thundercats Roar once and for all. Raven transports them to an empty field with some mountains in the background, which Starfire gets really excited about. It turns out Raven actually transported them into the cartoon. I don't know why they chose an empty field. They could have had them transport in front of the cat's lair, something more recognizable to Thundercats. These backgrounds aren't very impressive. They could be from any show. At least the backgrounds in Teen Titans Go are pretty distinctive. The walls are covered in pictures of the Titans, and Robin's room has posters, including posters of the Joker and Two-Face with batarangs in them, or birdarangs. It gives them more character, but regardless, they're in the pilot episode, and their plan is to beat up the Thundercats. They find them fighting Mumra in recycled animation from the pilot episode of Thundercats Roar. They're trying to pass this off as cool because the Titans who were hating on the show now think it's awesome, even though they aren't willing to admit it yet. A problem I have with Thundercats Roar is that pretty much every frame looks like an in-between. Sometimes animators use smear frames to make a whole action look better. They're not supposed to be seen, and if you do pause it, they look pretty silly, but it benefits the animation. But they abuse smear frames so much in Thundercats Roar, it's like that's all this show is made of. And it hurts the show overall. Starfire points out that they all seem to like it, but they all argue that it's still garbage even though it's inventive and fun. Fun is more subjective, but they don't explain how it's inventive. They just say it is. So we finally get into the crossover part of this crossover episode, 8.5 minutes in. Strange for an episode that's 10 minutes long. They probably could have cut down on the petition part. I get they were making fun of the fans and that takes priority over everything, but dragging it out over the whole middle of the episode didn't help it overall. Lion-O is the only Thundercat who gets to speak, so the teams hardly get to meet each other. But the Titans attack and Lion-O initially welcomes them until he realizes they're attacking. You can tell this episode was written before Thundercats Roar aired, because Lion-O is way more competent than he should be. He's able to take the 4 Titans with just one swing of his sword. That was the main issue of the pilot, that he needed to grow from being incompetent as a leader and a fighter. But the Thundercats defeat the Titans very easily. Didn't they defeat Slade in their movie? The Thundercats go in to finish the job, but they're stopped by Starfire. She says they don't mean any harm and they're just entitled brats with no manners. As opposed to her, of course, because demanding they explain why they don't like it, while you don't have to explain why you like it, is totally manners. Lion-O says they won't hurt them, but maybe in the future they can put their energy into something more important, because worrying about quality children's entertainment isn't important for a company that produces children's entertainment. So now we get the scene that was all over the internet about a month ago, where the original Lion-O comes down from the cartoon afterlife to declare Thundercats Roar a worthy successor, and anyone who says otherwise has a poop mouth with poop opinions. And they got his original voice actor to do this. To be fair, he already had a minor part in Teen Titans Go to begin with. I hope they paid him well enough to burn all those bridges, but somehow I doubt it. Anyway, original Lion-O doesn't actually make a case for the show either. What makes this a worthy successor? Because they beat up the Teen Titans? What does that prove? Roar Lion-O even makes a comment about how he totally appreciates the unforced endorsement. It's like they're purposely trying to make this show look bad. And then the original Lion-O starts flexing his muscles and they all talk about how cool he is. But then it zooms out to the original Snarf, who's sulking in a cave because no one cares about him. Then it pans out again to show that he's with 2011 Lion-O. Snarf says nobody cares about him either, but 2011 Lion-O just shrugs it off. I can't blame him for not wanting to get involved in any of this. But there's also a skeleton of the original Panthro on the ground, which looks really bad because his original voice actor passed away in 2017. So not long before this episode started production. So this caused a lot of controversy because of the disrespectful implications. Even if this was just another jab at the fans, I'm surprised this was approved given all the editors and people who are working on the show. Didn't anyone consider how this would look? One theory was that it was a reference to a comic book that was pretty edgy, and another assuming it was just another low blow to the fans. We asked on Twitter if there had been any clarification about this scene. Apparently there was a background artist who likes skeletons and likes to put them in the backgrounds of the shows, and this artist thought that Panthro would make a distinctive skeleton, explanation, so they just threw it in at the end of the episode, which I don't think is a good enough justification. Even if the crew had been ignorant of the voice actor's death, it's really inappropriate to have the skeleton of a main character just thrown into a shot with no context. This show runs on a major TV network. It's not like it's some independent project for them and their buddies. They can't just throw in a macabre inside joke and not expect any backlash, especially given the circumstances. Overall, this episode's purpose was to spite the fans, and I guess in that sense it succeeded, but it really didn't make an argument for Thundercats Roar. We barely got to see the Thundercats, or see the Titans interacting with them, basically the entire point of crossovers. They just saw the reaction to the 2018 Thundercats trailer and decided to make this episode. For as wild as the internet gets, it's not like they have the power to get a beloved voice actor to tell his own fans that they have poop mouths with poop opinions. And even though this was a Teen Titans Go episode, Thundercats Roar is gonna take the fall for this. TTG will probably continue business as usual, but Thundercats Roar will probably fall off the map and be remembered for original Lion-O making fun of his own fans, even though that didn't even happen on Thundercats Roar. But those are our thoughts. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching, we really appreciate it. We would have liked to do this video sooner, but things got pretty crazy. Sorry about that. If you want to support our channel, we have a GoFundMe, or you could buy us a coffee. And if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this. Thanks again for watching and being so patient, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.